Hello, and welcome to Stories Across Borders. Here we discuss stories told across a range of different media, books, movies, games, you name it. The only rule is that we can only discuss things in terms of the writing. Anything like acting, animation, or mechanics is out unless it relates directly to how the story is being told. I am Daniel Radford, author, cackling madman, and also your host. And today I'm joined once more by my usual co-host, John Kernan, as we continue our cycle on villains.
Hello, I believe anybody can be saved and it's worth the effort, even this guy.
Well, he's been wrong before, and he'll probably be wrong again. Today we are attempting to discuss, not even arguably, just straight up, some of the most iconic villains in fiction history, as we are attempting an episode on Batman to discuss not the man himself, but his opposition. So this is going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, I honestly I think the villains are a big part of why Batman has always been one of my favorites. Definitely my favorite on the DC side. I'll just say right away. I'm a decently big Batman fan despite not having the comics. He's my number two right after Spidey. I think a big part of that is his villains, and not just because the villains themselves are great, but he has my favorite much like Peter, he has like my favorite relationships with his villains out of like any superhero. Not just because they're wide and varied, but like he genuinely is gonna keep trying to help them no matter what. And they have some really interesting Batman stories where they're like, "Hey, what if we turn off the fighting real quick and remind everybody that these are people and no matter what they've done, Batman actually wants to save them. He's not just trying to beat them up."
Yeah, Batman has possibly the best rogues gallery in DC, if not all of superhero fiction. But the way that Batman's stories typically handle villains is worth analysis because it definitely stands out a lot amongst the oversaturated crowd of superhero media. And I think that that is going to be interesting to get into. So let's do that.
Yeah.
You've already touched on this, and before we go anywhere near discussing any of the specific members of the eclectic list that is Batman's Rogues Gallery. First and foremost, I want to talk about pretty much exactly what you already touched on during our little intro. The question of why are Batman's villains so good at being bad sometimes? Why are they so iconic and interesting? And why is it that they do sort of stand out from the crowd compared to the rogues galleries of not only other DC heroes, but superheroes in general? And I think that is because of the way that they are approached by their writers, usually. Obviously, as there are so many different Batman writers, the exact quality or way certain characters are portrayed is going to change somewhat every now and then. But by and large, I think what makes them so good is that they are typically very deeply thematically linked to Batman himself in some way. Whereas a lot of other villains for other superheroes don't really have that.
Yeah, many of Batman's villains were either people he knew before they were villains or people related to like Wayne Tech or Wayne Enterprises or outright people who maybe did something small or minor and actually became supervillains because of dealing with him or in reaction to him.
It's not just that though, right? It's not just that they have links to him as a person
That's
or
true.
shared histories, because that's not that uncommon. I mean, half of the MCU, by as a point of comparison, are villains created by their heroes inadvertently. It's a deeper thematic thing, where with Batman, it's so many of his villains have been twisted by and similar traumas as he has. They have suffered through similar losses or experiences, and it has changed them in a fundamental way, not dissimilarly to how it has changed him. Or it is they are a part of a conversation where they are the embodiment of some sort of ideological question about Batman's belief system and the code he operates under. And they pose either a challenge to that idea or point out some sort of flaw in it. And I think between sometimes it's both. And I think between those two things, that leads to some very, very interesting interactions between Batman and his villains, but also stories that tend to run a lot deeper than your typical superhero versus supervillain fare. Other heroes, they have like their one arch nemesis who's maybe part of a similar sort of discussion with them. But with Batman and this sort of extended rogues gallery, basically all of his major villains are thematically tied so deeply to the premise of Batman media in general, or to that shared origin of trauma and loss, or they are a part of that ideological discussion that is taking place in the form of the conflict between him and his villains.
That is so true. And I actually want to leapfrog off of that to say probably one of the few times in this I'm going to mention the Joker, because we all love the Joker. He's great, but he also gets so much more attention and play than all the other Batman villains that I don't think he needs that much of it here. But I will say that dynamic especially is the only thing that keeps specifically the Joker interesting besides just how crazy he is. Because, the Joker's moral question to Batman is so much simpler than everyone else's. And it's like, when is the line when it is okay for somebody to die to stop them from doing wrong? And it's so funny because it's also one of the only ones, maybe the only one, that Batman can never answer because we have a couple examples where he admits that he's not killing the Joker because it's wrong. He said like there are versions of Batman that have been like you probably do deserve to die, but once I take life into my hands and decide who lives and dies once, where does it stop? He doesn't kill the Joker because he worries about his own sanity and his own line, and that's not a line you can go back over once you cross it. And he doesn't know. It's not one of those things where once you're a killer, you're always a killer. It's specific to him. It's he doesn't know if he can keep doing what he does it once he's killed somebody.
It's the slippery slope argument, really. It's
Yeah,
he doesn't have a no-kill role because of some sort of moral thing. I mean, that's a part of it, but it's a question of if he kills someone like the Joker, someone who is truly irredeemable, who is constantly gets out of Arkham or out of prison, and by being allowed to live is resulting in just more and more and more death. He understands that he is arguably complicit in the Joker's continued path of destruction because he refuses to finally put an end to it. But if he does that, it's then going to be so much easier to to keep justifying doing that, to being like, well, this guy's killed a bunch of people. I gotta end him.
yeah. And there's a lot of people who have thought of that as like an imperative. I think a lot of people don't attribute it enough to like, no, this is specifically a Batman problem. It's not because nobody should or ever can be justified in killing. It's it's because of the position he's in and who he is, both because of the influence and power he wields, but also because he himself, as part of his connection to his villains, is not entirely sane. Like, we've heard it before. He's a man who runs around in bat ears, beating people up with gadgets and flying around like a super jet and everything. He's very often on the verge of cracking, and it's only his incredible willpower that keeps him going through the stuff he goes through, and he's giving that up if he kills.
I mean, yeah, we know that he's under crazy amounts of stress because even, in the on the occasions where Superman like swaps with him and goes to Gotham for a while, he always comes like Superman even comes out of it going like, "What the hell?"
Yeah, it's always so easy for us. That's one of the reasons the switches are so fun because they happened in the first place because there were people going, "Man, Superman could deal with all this shit easily in 2 seconds," and it's like, yeah, physically.
But Gotham's problems run so much deeper than that.
Yeah, and that's part of why it works because that's like a more advanced version of honestly the same problem he already has in Metropolis. Most of the problems Superman deals with in his own territory are also physically no problem.
Almost nothing is physically a problem. He's basically a god amongst men.
Yeah, he's almost literally a god amongst men. But that's what his story is about, is trying to be a good person and do the right thing when your morals are the only thing limiting what you do.
Like the corruption and the just poverty and all of these things that generate more and more and more crime in this horrible vicious cycle. It's not surprising that Batman is a little whacked in the head dealing with that all the time.
Yeah, the only thing that's surprising is that he's held it together as much as he does. And I think that's why they allow a mortal man like him to stand up like Darkseid. Like one of my favorite little clips I saw to break kayfabe for a second was a time that Dark whatever the Justice League has a big fight against Darkseid. Batman is the only one directly facing him in this moment, and people want to believe he's going to do something because he's Batman and he's always prepared. But Batman can't fight Darkseid. Superman can't even like always match up Darkseid 1-to-1. Darkseid beats his ass and is about to kill him, only to realize that Batman's holding a detonator and already has a bomb on like the core of whatever they were there to stop Darkseid from doing. And Darkseid just kind of looks down on him and he's like, he essentially says like, "You tiny little mortal freak. You weren't afraid of me once this entire time, were you? You were ready to blow us both up the whole time." And Batman's like, "Yeah, bitch, and I'd do it again."
Yeah. If we were we would have a lot to talk about even if we were doing a heroes cycle. We'll have to come back to Batman one day when we do a heroes cycle and discuss the man himself. But
Yeah, but suffice it to say that willpower is super interesting, partially because that's the only reason he can really properly deal with these villains, and it's such a big part of his connection with them.
it isn't the only part though, and I think that is
No.
another part of the thing with the whole Joker argument and the fact that he is afraid that if he crosses that line, he will keep doing it. Eventually he'll be able to just self-justify it more and more and more. And that's because he, as a hero, is deeply empathetic towards his villains because again, it's that thematic link. He understands where the evil is coming from. So many of his villains aren't truly evil like the Joker. They are deeply damaged people who are lashing out at a society and a broken system that has failed them in some way or hurt them in some way. The reason he can't kill the Joker is because he doesn't want to kill. any of these other people because he knows where they're coming from and he knows that they can be saved.
Yeah, they need help, and there's nobody else trying to or in a position really to help them. He's the only one who understands and cares and is trying to do something about it. There are different people who are some of those three, but he's pretty much the only one who's all three. And a he really knows how to deal with it. And I think that's why Batman also, despite how many villains he still has, probably has one of the best track records for a chunk of his villains do get redeemed.
A lot
Harley
of them.
Quinn, Poison Ivy, in a few different stories, Clayface, Mr. Freeze, of course, but he was never a full-fledged villain anyways. He was just a very, very sad man.
He mostly just wanted to kill one guy.
Yeah, like he does other bad things, but it's almost all in the pursuit of killing the bad one guy, or also because his emotions are horribly stifled, and that's one of the reasons I love the stories where we get to see him work together. But before I get into that, Batman the animated series, which will always be my goat, love Bruce Timm Batman, um, has like a couple different great episodes that cover multiple villains or his relationship with the villains in general. And like, there's one I love, and it's the episode where Harley Quinn is basically trying to decide she's starting to question whether she should stay with the Joker or not after they have a big fight with Batman where he basically tosses her to what could very well be her death over some small little thing she didn't do right, and he doesn't care. And she's almost like heartbroken over it despite always knowing he's been crazy. And she goes through a lot of stuff, and Batman like works with her and talks to her and helps her. And like at the end she basically looks at him and she's like, why would you do all this for someone like me? And he just says, I know what it's like to have a bad day.
Doesn't he like buy her a dress or something?
I don't remember what it is. It's like something like a dress or an ice cream, but just something like simple and uplifting. And yeah, when she says like, why would you do all this for someone like me? He just says, I know what it's like to have one bad day. And I love that both because of how meaningful it is and how true it is to what they're all going through, but also that's the specific thing that Joker tries to push. Joker tries to push, and he believes that one bad day can truly break anybody. And Batman is literally the standing living proof that that's not true because he had his one bad day.
That's one of the things that is so. I mean, that's the whole premise, but not just like in particular behind the Killing Joke, isn't it? That the idea that the Joker is just trying to cause people to snap.
Yeah, it's him almost soft giving up. And it's a shame too because the core idea is interesting. It was only things in the execution that I
Yeah,
don't like about the Killing Joke. One huge thing in particular that makes me want to throw up, and I'm glad it never happened again in like any Batman story, because boy, was that a stupid mistake. But anyways, um, the yeah, it's him trying to prove his philosophy, but it hasn't worked on Batman, so he's gonna try it on Jim Gordon instead.
basically. I was just thinking like of the animated series as well of the there's an episode called Baby Doll. Do you remember that one?
Oh, Baby Doll's so sad.
Yeah.
Oh man, for anybody who doesn't know, because if you don't remember that
Because
episode,
she's kind
she's
of a
kind of
one-off villain, yeah.
she is a one-off, very obscure villain. And that's one of the other things I like about Batman is because he doesn't partially because he doesn't have these crazy superpowers, but also because he cares about helping people and because he's a detective, he can have interesting one-off villains and confrontations much more consistently than a lot of other heroes because you could just turn it into a modern little Penny Dreadful detective novel for an issue if you want. But he tracks an old famous actress who's I think probably at least in a couple ways a pretty direct reference to Oh my God, I'm forgetting her name, but little famous Goldilocks actors girl who did so many
Shirley
movies and stuff.
Temple.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's in some ways a very direct Shirley Temple analog.
Except, except Shirley Temple grew up to be one of the best people around because she became like a UN ambassador and shit.
Yeah, and this actress has a rare disease that basically it doesn't physically stop her aging, but it stops her from like visually aging. She's gonna look like a little girl forever, and
She's got the same thing as the villain in Orphan.
yeah, and she snaps over it, can't take it. We get their whole confrontation, and it's very interesting because she's partially trying to relive the glory days, but she's also trying to destroy them. She's gonna get all her old co-stars together and blow them up. I'm pretty sure, including herself. I'm pretty sure she's gonna blow all of them up together. And Batman stops her, and near the end, we get them fighting in a house of mirrors only for her to see one for just a second that makes her look to her eyes how she thinks she would look if she grew up properly. And she just starts crying. And Batman just puts a hand on her shoulder while she's crying, like the fight just stops. And that's it.
And that is, that's why not only does he stand out so much as a hero, but that's why his relationship with his villains is so good. That is why, in large part, the Joker is such an iconic villain for him, because the Joker's entire reason for existing, not just as a character, but in universe, effectively, is that he wants to quote the Dark Knight trilogy, he wants to see the world burn. He wants to prove that deep down everyone is just as messed up as him, and that he can break people to show that reality as he sees it.
And that's why he can do such horrible things because beneath that smile, he might be the most hateful one of all. He sees everyone else as a bunch of phonies trying to hide what he's accepted.
Yeah, in his mind, the dark, destructive, both to others and us and to the self, the impulsive and violent tendencies, all of the in his mind, all of humanity's worst parts are who we are. Whereas, Batman, in opposite to that, in his mind, all of humanity's best parts are who we are deep down, even the ones of us who are doing horrible things. And that's why they are in perpetual conversation with each other, even though that they have so little in common compared to Batman and other villains he has. There's a thing I like a meme that went around a while back, and they're sort of listing other all these villains, sort of going, really, the one that lost their parents and went crazy isn't his direct his most iconic direct arch nemesis. The guy who specifically uses fear as a weapon like him isn't his most direct arch nemesis. The crazy ninja who is basically has the same skill set isn't his direct arch nemesis. It's the fucking clown.
It's the clown because they're the places they oppose each other are the deepest and most core to their beings.
Exactly. The Joker is iconic not just because he is fun, because let's be honest, even though he is heinous, when you're watching a guy who just loves what he's doing that much, what he's p portrayed well anyway, we don't talk about Suicide Squad. Uh,
Mm.
he's a charismatic villain who just loves doing what he's doing is compelling. But the reason that the Joker has sort of, who was supposed to be a one-off originally, has stood the test of time and become the iconic Batman villain in so many ways is because of that ideological conversation, because they are the most direct iteration of that conversation. The discussion of who is humanity at its core. And it's interesting because the reality is they're two sides of the same coin. And we're going to get into that too. I know that's a perfect segue. I'm choosing to ignore it to finish my points.
Hey, you know what? His coin doesn't really have two sides anyway, so it's fine. He's a cheater.
Well, it depends on the iteration. That they are two sides of the same coin. The reality is that people are much more complicated. Most people, anyway, are much more complicated than being all good or all evil. It is very few of us that are that I mean, in reality, no one is pure good or evil, really. It's just
But
a
there's
very,
very
it's
few
just,
people who even veer mostly to one side or the other.
yeah.
Most people are closer to the middle.
And we don't want to admit it, but yeah. I mean, obviously, there's outliers like horrific dictators and people on certain lists.
Yeah, well, and there's that, and like there's a lot of people who do things like petty theft, but also aren't directly hurting anyone or doing anything
Yeah,
awful. And
exactly.
and there's a lot of us who are fine, normal, decent people, but aren't doing charity work and like saving people's lives and stuff either.
Yeah,
So
we're not living like Buddhist monks and donating all of our worldly possessions to others to their benefit. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
A lot of Buddhist monks aren't even living like Buddhist monks. But I think it's that, right? It's the fact that every time Batman and the Joker are in conflict with each other, it's not just two guys who are kind of crazy fighting each other or trying to kill each other or whatever. It's every time they are in conflict, it is an incarnation of this discussion between the two of them.
Yeah, it's an ongoing conversation that never ends because it doesn't have a clear-cut answer.
Well, yes and no, right? Because the more often than not, the Joker does lose, and that
That's
implies
true.
that people, on average at least, are more inclined towards good. That is, the fact that Joker loses more often than not is sort of the answer to the question, at least in this story. It is saying Batman is right. There is more people lean more to good than evil if they are given the chance to be good and enter Harley Quinn.
Yeah, as somebody who's ping-ponged across the entire spectrum at different times.
Oh, I mean, one of the things that makes her so interesting, especially in relation to the Joker, is that she starts out as so good, but she is a genuinely good person who is trying to help some of the worst people in Gotham as
Yeah,
a psychiatrist.
a highly skilled psychiatrist who's just going to basically the world's worst insane asylum to try to help people.
And the Joker uses her empathy and care against her to manipulate her into falling in love with him and caring about him, and then uses that care to break her and turn her into Harley Quinn.
Yeah, and she works great as a modifier to the question and the conflict between Batman and the Joker because of that connection and the fact that she is sitting there as what seems like is an answer to one of them and is actually an answer to the other one.
Yeah, because the initial appearance is that she is Joker's answer. Look, I took someone who wanted nothing more than to help me, and I turned her into a thief and a murderer and a lunatic. Now I made her as crazy as me. I broke her. But the minute she's taken away from him and out of that toxic environment, she jumps at the chance to switch sides in almost every iteration of her.
And eventually, after a couple attempts, she sticks it and she stays away from the Joker. She's never fully 100% sane again. She doesn't she never really fully goes back to being Harleen Quinzel, but
What a stupid
Har
last name, by the way. Just putting that
listen,
out there.
listen, listen. Yes, but but she but Harley Quinn becomes a hero. And like she has her anti-hero moments, but really she after a couple stumbles, she's just a hero. We even get her carrying on and continuing to be a great example of Batman's answer to the question because she also helps a couple other people. She's a big part of why um oh my God. My
Poison
brain tried
Ivy.
to say my brain tried to say Black Widow and then like
Nope.
Scarlet Rose, and I don't even know who that is.
Nope. I had nothing. You got Scarlet Witch, who's also not the correct.
No, no, I don't know what that was, but yes, Poison Ivy helps Poison Ivy turn things around, and that's part of why them being a couple is cute and great, and we love it. But like regardless of even if they had become a couple, like Poison Ivy's another reformed, turned around villain, and a big part of that is Batman, but the other big part of it is Harley Quinn and her going on to do more good things and believing in people the same way Batman does.
Yeah, it's the butterfly effect, right? Or like a chain reaction.
And it's funny because I don't think she gives him credit for it. I don't think she even knows if it's because of Batman, but I think she's kind of inspired by him.
Quite possibly, yeah. A lot of people just love Harley because for the same reasons they love the Joker. She's crazy and that makes her fun. But I really like that her as a character as a vessel for the conversation between the Joker and Batman.
She's a great, possibly the best example of it, and also a good example to Batman's version of the same way. The Joker took somebody who was following him on his side away from him. Because one of the other great Batman villains, even though he's not a villain for long, that w we love is Mister Red Hood.
Oh, I mean, I was originally gonna save him for last, but yeah,
Oh my
uh,
God.
uh, we we, it's good. We can do our boy Red Hood now if you want. He's my personal favorite. So,
Well, I mean, we
but
could
I
wait a
mean,
little
it
longer
no,
because I do have others I can talk
it
about.
it makes he is one of two other villains that it makes a lot of sense to jump from Joker to him. So we can do Red Hood.
Yeah, the connections between them are very strong, not least of which is because no need
Connection
to
via a crowbar.
no need to keep it to keep it hidden and subtle. For anybody who doesn't already know, first of all, go watch Under the Red Hood. It's great. But second of all, spoilers now. The Red Hood is Jason Todd, the second Robin after Dick Grayson. Part of what's so brutal is I know stuff was going on with the comics at the time. Fans didn't like Jason that much. They thought he had too much in common with Dick Grayson, which is part of why Tim Drake was so different.
Oh, it's interesting you say that because originally Jason Todd's origins were almost identical,
Yeah.
but they very quickly after that, sort of through the art of endless retconning that is common book canon, his origins changed a lot to, he wasn't just another acrobat with dead parents. He was a street rat orphan who Batman found tried boosting the tires off of the Batmobile, which is amazing. And he was just like, that shouldn't be possible. I'm
Yeah,
keeping
no, I
you.
love their connection. It's so great. It started out he finds a kid almost successfully stealing the tires off the Batmobile, and it's
I
like
think he
that,
had like one left.
and it's like that should
How?
I'm s an advanced mechanical engineer would struggle to do that before I got back. Who the hell are you? You're coming home with me, you street rat. Like uh, his like literally practically looking at him being like, shit, this kid's talented. I can use that.
Yeah, he sees the potential in very true Batman fashion, sees the potential in this like street rat kid that anyone else in Gotham would turn their nose up and write off as a no-hope or already doomed to a life of crime. And he takes him under his wing and gives him a place to stay and gives him a life and somewhere to direct all that talent.
Surprise, surprise, Street Rat Orphan was only committing crime because he was a street rat orphan.
Yeah. And, you know, obviously there's a lot to be said about Batman's tendency to turn people into child soldiers, but, you know, we've already established he's not exactly sane himself.
No, and to be fair, he has his reasons and he does everything he can to protect them. And you also distinctly get the feeling that if they didn't so badly want to follow in his footsteps and be heroes, he would have just let them be regular adopted kids.
Yeah. And the thing is like Jason Todd after he gets taken, he gets all this training and stuff. He loves it.
He absolutely loves being Robin, and he's so good at it right away almost.
Like he takes to it so readily. He's probably never not quite the, you know, physical prodigy that Dick Grayson was, but he's still very good at all of it and he thrives on it. And then one day, the worst possible thing that could happen to him happens to him. Ra's al Ghul royally fucks up by employing the Joker to be a distraction.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Oof.
and the way the Joker goes about doing that is he kidnaps Jason Todd and just beats the living shit out of him with a crowbar to an inch of his life and then blows him
Yeah.
up.
The only time I've ever, I mean, I guess I shouldn't say I wasn't entertained because I was very interested, but the only time that the Joker's charisma and humor couldn't shine through the bad things he was doing for me because I was just sad.
I mean, it was brutal. It was so for you know, it's one of those DC animated ones where they're balancing on the line between being for adults and being for kids.
Yeah, like there's lots of cutaways from him actually hitting him, but they're about as showy as they can possibly get away with.
To be clear, it is technically labeled as adult animation, but because it's Batman, they're trying to keep it as, you know, broad appeal as possible, so they don't hard commit to they don't go killing joke on us. But it's vile, it's brutal. And then after all that, as he's trying to get out, he just blows him up.
Yeah,
And
he
and
leaves the
he
bomb there and it
dies.
blows up literally as Batman gets there.
In the end, what happens is even Ra's al Ghul, your criminal mastermind, whatever, he has standards, and even he's like, I fucked up. This is on me.
Yeah,
This was too far. This shouldn't have happened.
let's be clear. Ra's al Ghul is one of the only other actually evil villains, even though he is complicated, besides
He's
the
evil, but he
Joker
has
for Batman. He
standards.
is a bad person. He wants to control the world through murder, but at the very, very least, even if his definition of what's good and bad can be a little twisted sometimes, he is against killing good people, and he hates the idea that somebody that by his rules and standards was a good person died
Yeah,
because of him.
he says it himself in the movie, like, yeah, he has blood in his hands. Yes, he kills people, but never does he kill someone just for the sake of it. And he it's so bad that he feels honor bound to use the Lazarus pit, which is how he has been living for hundreds of years. It's this like restorative magic pit thing, which I hate 9 times out of 10 that this exists. It's the only time that this appears in Batman or DC media that I actually like well, one of two examples of the Lazarus pit that I actually like. And he's like, well, I've heard that theoretically it can bring someone back from the dead. And he succeeds, and it's not great.
Nope, because the Lazarus Pit already had at least very mildly degenerative properties, which is one of the reasons Ra's al Ghul stays around as a villain, is because not only was he already not a great person, but he's used the Lazarus Pit a lot. And even though he's mostly using it to heal wounds and de-age himself, not come back from the dead, he's still fucked up from it. You could probably use it a couple of times without being dead with very few drawbacks, but he has used it a lot. And it's that much worse if you are bringing somebody back from the dead with it. They don't come back fully as themselves. Haha,
Yeah, I mean,
Pet Cemetery.
and Jason Todd, when he comes back, when he first comes back, he comes back in agony.
Yeah, he's it almost doesn't even properly heal his wounds all the way before it brings him back to life.
Yeah, he's brought back, and the experience he's gone through has changed him, where he sort of looks at the Joker and goes, "That wouldn't have happened to me, and that wouldn't have happened to other people if you had just fucking killed this guy already."
Yeah, it's actually honestly, and I don't remember if Harley Quinn had any I think her redemption actually probably came after the Red Hood stuff. I don't know when the Red Hood stuff originally happened in the comics because
Yeah,
it was
the
probably pretty
movie
old by
is
the time
like
we got under the Red
2010, I
Hood.
think.
Yeah. So, and I don't remember, I don't know when Red Hood happened in the comics or when Harley Quinn had like a real redemption for the first time in the comics. But like basically he is the perfect at first at least Jason Todd is the perfect opposite to Harley Quinn. Started on one side, switched to the other, and seems to be the Joker's answer to the question, not just because he's broken, but because he's sitting there going, no, this is wrong, actually. He should die. You're doing something wrong by letting him live.
Yeah, yeah. He at some point he's even like when he finally is having his like verbal confrontation, which the Joker is loving. He's eating it up because he's also there.
Oh God, nobody's ever been more happy to be tied up and shoved into the corner of a shitty little
Yeah.
bathroom in an apartment.
He even basically says, I'm not talking about Riddler or Mr. Freeze or even or Dent or any of these other people. I'm just talking about him. He is irredeemable. He is clearly not containable because he keeps getting out, or people keep breaking him out because they stupidly think they can use him. And his continued existence and the fact that you allow it is why what happened to me happened, and it's why it happens to other people, and it's just wrong.
And he pours his heart out to him really good because I also love the line where he's basically like, even if you couldn't do it for all those other reasons, why couldn't you do it for
Yeah,
me?
it's his point is basically that it is morally wrong to let the Joker live because of the horrific shit he keeps doing and will continue to do ad nauseum until he will
He'll
never stop.
never
He will
stop.
be an old decrepit man and he will just find other people to do it for him.
And even though it's got its issues, we get a great example of that in Return of the Joker
Exactly.
and Batman Beyond. There's like, oh yeah, he tried to set things up so that he could keep doing what he does from beyond death.
And he's basically yeah, and yeah, there's a personal bent to it as well, of course, because he's like you didn't you wouldn't even bend your code for my sake. Do you not understand why you were part of the problem here? And it's a common debate in the like wider DC fandom, basically, of is should Batman kill the Joker? And I mean that's one of the things that tells you that the way this villain is part of this wider conversation is so good because Red Hood is a physical embodiment of that discussion.
And he's forcing the question to his face.
And that's where we get that whole monologue from from Batman, where he's basically sort of says the whole thing of like, you think I don't want to kill this man? Do you think I haven't thought about just choking him out and ending him time and time again? The problem isn't that it would be easy, like it wouldn't be hard. The problem isn't that it would be hard. It would be too
The
easy.
problem is it would be easy.
And if I can do it to him, I can do it to anyone. But if I can't do it to him, I can't do it to anyone. And that's the important thing.
Yeah, and it's another great example of his relationships with his villains is there's a little more to it than what we've said, but to not belabor the point too much since we're low on time and haven't talked about that many villains yet. He even in all his hurt, he gets through to Jason. He gets through to his son through all this pain and makes him realize what he's really going through and how much losing him really hurt him and mattered to him, and that like he was never loved any less. He was never moved on from, and the Joker could never be forgiven for it. He just has to hold on to his one line.
It is a recurring theme in Batman media, this idea of the Joker specifically as well, taking someone good and breaking them to try and prove this point, and then still being proven wrong in the end. Because there's a lot of different versions of Two-Face, of Harvey Dent, but the Dark Knight version of him specifically is basically filling the same role as Jason Todd does here. He is someone who was so genuinely good, who was, we could argue about the ethics of some of the laws he helped pass.
Yeah, he wasn't a perfect person, but he was 100% dedicated to justice and doing what he thought was the right thing to help people.
Joker saw this and went, I'm gonna break him. I'm gonna take the best of you.
Joker said, "Ooh, a new
Well,
toy. Do you
like he,
squeak?"
oh, the thing is, the reason he chooses Dent, not Gordon, not Batman, anyone else, is because he understands that he's the one who is not walking on the line.
Yeah, he hasn't dipped into the dark side at all. He is 100% walking in the light. So Joker is going to drag him down into the muck.
One of the things that is I think is so interesting about the Dark Knight is that it let the Joker win, but it also didn't.
Yeah.
He succeeded in he failed to prove his point with Gotham on the whole because the prison boat didn't blow up the civilians did blow up, but he failed at that, but he succeeded at breaking Dent.
Yeah, he was proven right on the microcosm and is maybe okay, maybe not everybody can be broken by one bad day, but people can.
Yeah. And that's specifically like the Dark Knight version. The other versions of Two-Face go a lot of different ways. The disfigurement typically comes from acid, coming from a different villain, I think.
Usually, I think originally
Actually,
it's just the
it might
mob.
just be the mob,
Like
yeah.
straight up some mob dudes he was causing problems for.
And a lot in some more recent versions, he's a victim of abuse, and he's got DID, and the things he goes through sort of triggers that. But the reason Two-Face is interesting in this conversation isn't just because of the Dark Knight version, where he takes the place of Jason Todd in so many ways in that discussion. It's because his whole theme is duality.
Yeah, and I love them playing with that too, by the idea of like, oh yeah, when he was a lawyer and when he was the DA, despite being a good guy doing good things for the vast majority, one of his gimmicks was he had a two-headed coin. A coin that's just heads on both sides because just because he's trying to do the right thing doesn't mean he's 100%. It doesn't mean he's trying to leave any opportunity to lose. He is going to win for the good guys. He's not in this to just 100% play fair and see where the wind takes him. He's here to make things better. So he's got his two-sided coin because he's going to make sure the odds are always in his favor. And then when his face gets burned, so does one side of the coin. And suddenly he doesn't have that dynamic anymore, and the coin reflects his face, but also his new black and white morality.
Two-Face's whole thing is duality, the number two. The fact that there is everyone has got this good and evil side, and his whole thing is he leaves it up to chance. So much of what he does is he flips his damaged coin, and depending on the side you get is whether he does the horrific fucked up thing to you or not.
Yeah. Although sometimes when he's feeling really shitty, if you do get the good side, he'll just flip it again like an asshole. You're like, okay, guys, not that one. Maybe, yeah. What if we do something else to you instead? And you're sitting there like, what? No, I won.
My favorite example
Let me
of
go.
that one actually is from The Dark Knight, where he's got the mob boss in the car and he like flips the coin and the mob and he's like, "Oh, look at that. You survived. Good job, Mr. Mob Boss." Let's Then he flips it again and the mob and he goes, "Oh, he's not so lucky." And the mob boss is like, "What? Who? What? What do you mean?" "Oh, the driver." And he buckles himself in and then shoots the driver so the car crashes.
Yeah. I love that kind of stuff. Yeah, Harvey Dent's an interesting guy because he has all that going on, and also him and Bruce were friends. Uh, 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 Harvey was supposed to be his shining example, his symbol who could do what Batman couldn't, because despite all the good things Batman does, he is a vigilante. He is a shadow in the dark, like, a shadow in the darkness, as redundant as that is. And Harvey is a bright, shining beacon of light who can walk through and do the right thing in public in front of everybody.
Which he's so tragic for that reason, but also so interesting because even as a villain, he is so committed to fairness.
He's obsessed with the bit.
His obsession with justice morphs into an obsession with fairness, would possibly be a bit better way to say it, where everything he does is left to chance, good or evil, they both exist simultaneously. He is basically the walking answer to the Joker Batman discussion. Because on any given day, he could be either Harley Quinn or Red Hood.
He can be your Angle or your Devil.
And I think that just like I love that he is basically just, even though he's definitely not one of my, like, he's not my favorite villain by any means. I love this idea that he is just the walking premise of the whole ideological debates.
Yeah. One of my favorite ways somebody, villain or hero, has ever been fucked with in a Batman story, and I really wish I could remember who did it and why. But basically, there's a moment where Harvey's gonna flip his coin, and somebody does something so that like a million coins fall all over the ground at the same time as he goes to flip his coin, and he
Hmm.
drops it, and he has a meltdown. He can't he can't handle not being able to know how the coin flips went, not just with his coin, but with all of them. It sends him spiraling.
Yeah, like how do you reckon he weighs that up with like if there's multiple coins? Does he like rule on averages if there's a tie? Does he flip them all again?
Considering how crazy it made him, I think he was compelled to pick up and see the fall of every single coin because that keeps him busy for a while.
And I mean, the problem with us doing this episode is that there's so many other like villains we could discuss. Like we could talk about Bane, who is interesting because he's like a direct sort of middle finger to the stereotypical big brute, where he is both massive and actually very smart. We could talk about how Scarecrow is a really interesting villain because he uses the same weapon as Batman does, where fear is his biggest tool. We could talk about Talia al Ghul, who is just a crazy bitch because she was raised by Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah, crazy bitch who had the potential to be better, but in the end In the end, the best thing she ever did was give birth to Damien, and that wasn't really under great circumstances either. He ended up being good, but the way she went about creating him sure
Yeah, and
wasn't.
I mean he Damien, who is Damian Wayne, in case anyone was wondering. Yeah, she seduces Batman or Bruce Wayne. Yeah.
No, not even. She like stole his DNA. She didn't even
Oh,
get
did
pregnant
she? I
properly.
thought I could have sworn that it was. I'm not super familiar with them though. So that's even crazier. Why? That's the second person to steal this man's DNA to force it to like create and engineer a new Batman, basically.
Sure is, and that's actually the other person I wanted, the last person I wanted to really talk about before we end, even though we only have
Oh
so
yeah,
much time.
I got at least two others I think we really need to touch on, but
We can hit the others first. I think she should be saved for last.
I'm assuming you mean Waller.
Yes. Amanda Waller, despite not specifically being a Batman villain, is one of his greatest
She's, well,
adversaries.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. The thing with her, she's not even necessarily a villain. She's more of an
Sometimes she
anti-villain.
is.
I mean, an anti-villain is still a villain, to be fair.
Yeah,
She like rides a very fine line between anti-hero and anti-villain.
it's funny because in a way, the Joker is Batman's like opposite answer to the big question. But I think Waller also stands on an opposite side of that question, but more so than that, I think in other ways, she might be the person who's the most opposite to Batman.
Yeah, all right, yeah, we'll finish up on her. In that case, there the other two villains I really want to touch on for two very different reasons. One, because I have complaints, and and one because I think we would be remiss not to talk about him. So we'll start with Mr. Freeze.
Mr. Freeze, the goat, but also very sad. And
Yeah, I feel like most people when they think of Mr. Freeze, they only think of the awful, awful puns coming out of Arnold Schwarzenegger's mouth.
man,
And the character runs so much deeper than that.
yeah.
Mr. Freeze is interesting because out of all of Batman's villains, he is the one who is the most singularly focused other than the Joker. And his whole thing is he is the one bad day. The the corrupt money in Gotham basically resulted in an experiment he was running to try and save his terminally ill wife through cryogenics being shut down. And there's a scuffle and he gets knocked into a machine and some other stuff that's irrelevant.
Yeah, CO literally walks in and is like, "Oh, you're not done with this yet? This project hasn't made any money. I'm shutting it down." And he's like, "Please just give me at least a little more time. My wife is literally in there. She will die almost as soon as this stuff is turned off." And he's like, "I don't fucking care. I own this shit. Shut it down."
And like that breaks Freeze and he just becomes single-mindedly focused on one thing. He is going to ruin that man's life and kill him.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I find so cool and interesting is thinking about it. Long running, Mr. Freeze's obsession is with trying to find a way to save his wife. But in a way, Batman gave him that obsession because at first all he can think about is killing that guy, and he doesn't even show signs that he has hope of really saving Nora.
No, he's given up by that point because the experiment's been like shut down. The whole thing was he was trying to put her in stasis until there was a way to save her. If
Yeah.
only he had known about the fucking Lazarus pit.
Hey, Bruce, what if you no? Okay. It's okay. Don't tell him. He doesn't need to know. It's fine.
Freeze is interesting because he is inherently a good man who has his one bad day, who is broken, and that makes him a killer. But he doesn't. He's not indiscriminate. He's out for revenge.
Yeah, and although he's very cold, hot, and uncaring to like his minions or whatever and stuff, he's really not trying to kill anybody else. It's
I mean, he's okay with like he's a little okay with collateral, but I think it's less that he's that other people don't matter. It's just that he is so focused on ending and on ruining and then ending this one guy that the collateral damage doesn't even occur to him.
no, especially because to worry about the collateral damage, he would have to slow down and he can't do that. He's on a mission.
he's so good because Batman looks at him and he's like, "Oh shit, I am like a hair's breadth away from being him. I have been where he is and come pretty close to doing some of the same things. I've The reason we are both who we are is rooted in such similar circumstances." He looks at him and he's like, We are very nearly the same person."
And as soon as Batman finds out how he became Mr. Freeze and what happened to him, he gets the info he needs to take down the guy who did that his way.
Yeah, he brings the guy who broke Freeze to justice, and that helps refocus Freeze. He's still unstable and he still has to pay for what he did, but suddenly he's like, wait, no, like I could just focus on maybe I could turn my focus back to my work. Maybe I
I still, and his wife's not completely gone. Like he managed to barely keep the equipment together. She's there. She's barely alive, but she still exists. And now he has enough hope to believe in that one little spark.
and yet another example of the whole premise of Batman and so many of his villains being they are fundamentally broken people. If you put their pieces back together, they can become good again. And again, this is something we talked about in the Has-Been episode as well. I like that it's not shirking responsibility necessarily.
No, he did bad things.
They still have to do their time. They still have to do good. There's penance involved. They still have to work more than anyone once they have changed side, flipped a bit or whatever to be good and outweigh the bad they did. And but the fact that so many of them just jump at the chance to be good as soon as they are put in circumstances that allow them to mend their trauma and be good again is so interesting.
Yeah, we're not going to go into a full discussion about him this time, but that's one of the reasons I love Clayface too. I wish I could remember because I'm pretty sure I heard about a story where even Clayface eventually gets redeemed. But he's interesting because he was very much a middle of the road guy. He was never that good or that bad. He was an actor before all that, and he was a really good actor. His face, gets disfigured horribly, and it ruins his career because your face is such a big part of being a big celebrity actor. Um, and yada yada yada. He gets involved with a bad company that makes goop that lets you mess with your face so he can try to be pretty and look like his old self again. Does crimes
Clayface
for
just did the
them.
substance before it was cool.
Yeah. They turn on him. The stuff turns him into a big goop monster. Now he can shapeshift. Kind of continues to be a villain half because he's broken and upset and wants to do bad things, but also half because the stuff he does as a villain becomes his new performance. He's committing crimes by becoming different people. He's so obsessed with his art and with doing the actor stuff that this is kind of his greatest hits challenge of being an actor he could ever be given, which is pretty much the only reason it's hard for Batman to redeem him is because he's like, this is my life's calling. I'm doing what I was always going to do, and I'm the best there ever was.
He's got a lot in common with Two-Face and Baby Doll.
Yeah. Yeah, he does.
So before we get into Waller,
Yeah, especially because I have 20 minutes.
oh God, I'm gonna speed run Riddler slash Hush. It's the only villain on this list, I think, who isn't part of the ideological conversation.
Yeah, especially because in some of the realities, they're not always the same person, are they?
I think they are usually, but
I
hard
didn't
to
even
say.
realize.
But the reason I have to mention Riddler slash Hush is because I mean, look, we all know Riddler's thing. He thinks he's crazy smart, and he has to prove it by any means necessary, and usually
He
that
has
takes
to
the
prove
form.
he's the smartest guy ever, and Batman is the only person to ever consistently outsmart him, and he cannot stop hating him for that. His whole thing is just being a hater.
And he has a very fragile ego. He's a C-list villain. Everyone knows it. And one day he discovers he has an inoperable brain tumor, and he freaks out when confronted with his mortality. Uses his crazy smarts to, I don't know, launder some money or something to get access to the fucking Lazarus pit. It regenerates him enough that he can keep going about things. But the thing with the Lazarus pit is it is also, whilst it does take, the effects wear off over time, it also kind of dials all of your traits up. That means it makes you stronger, it makes you smarter, it makes you more alive, and makes you more unstable. And for the Riddler, what that does is it makes everything click into place for him, where he loses his goofiness and everything, but he also is able to go, wait a minute, of course it's the fucking rich guy.
It's been Bruce Wayne the whole time. How come I didn't see it sooner?
The premise of like the movie Hush, and I assume also most of his comic book iterations, is that because he has this sudden like epiphany, he then goes about attacking Batman, where Batman is vulnerable. In theory, what he actually does, Bruce Wayne, obviously, he attacks his alter ego. What he actually does is sick a bunch of other villains on him in a parade of other villains because they just want to cram as many cameos as possible into the movie, up until like the last 30 minutes, where he finally starts doing the actual premise of the movie. And the Hush storyline frustrates me so much because it could have been so much better. And I'm just going to use a moment to pitch you my version of Hush, because if I don't get this out there, I'm going to lose my shit. Hear me out. Riddler, C-list villain. Batman doesn't take him seriously. None of the other villains take him seriously. And we all know he's got this crazy, this fragile ego where he has to be better than everyone, prove how smart he is. And then one day he gets this, he discovers he is terminally ill, inoperable brain tumor. We ignored the Lazarus Pit. It doesn't exist in my made-up canon because I don't like it except for the Red Hood storyline. And he goes, and what he does is he just locks the fuck in, and he goes, right, I am going to die. I can be remembered as the C-lister that everyone makes fun of, that no one takes seriously, or I could go out as the guy that beat Batman. And he uses all of that intellect, stops doing his stupid riddles, and just locks the hell in, and uses that insane intellect of his to piece it together who Batman actually is and how he can hurt him. And he then goes about, maybe he's still six other villains on him. Maybe gets Ivy to six Superman on him, whatever. He goes about targeting him where it hurts and dismantles him from the inside by taking apart Bruce Wayne. And he goes about, oh, that would be so much better than the Hush we got.
It
Because,
would be, yeah, especially if he did things like pull on the Jason Todd string to hurt
yeah,
him.
exactly. Exactly. The idea of the guy that was underestimated by everyone, even Batman, being the guy who finally pushes him to the brink. That would be so much more compelling than who we got. Let me write Hush DC. I'll do it for free. No, no, I won't. But I'll do it. I'll do it cheap.
I would do it for free if I didn't need money.
I'll do it cheaper than whoever else you got to do it.
That's for sure.
But anyway, that's me. That's my rant on Hush. That's me being so disappointed because I thought that movie was going to be so much better than it was. Not that it was a bad movie. I was less bothered by it being bad because it wasn't. It was just mid. That bothered me more because it could have been amazing.
I could also be getting mixed up too, because what part of what's weird about it is I could swear that in the comics, Hush was a character that was like a a young kid in a similar situation to Bruce Wayne who like grew up with him but lost everything including his family's fortune and a lot of other stuff and became an ingenious surgeon and then went around doing serial killer stuff and taking apart a bunch of different people's faces until he could make a perfect recreation of Bruce Wayne's face over his to try to steal his life.
Yeah, from what I'm seeing, he was like yeah. So the neurosurgeon character in the movie Hush is probably yeah, Thomas Elliot is that is who Hush is in the comics.
Okay, well,
He
at least I'm
allies
not
with
totally
Riddler
confused.
he allies with Riddler in the comics to take Batman's like life apart, rule Bruce's life. Uh,
Okay.
because he's supposed to be like the and he is supposed to be like the foil, the guy who went through all the same shit and
It's a shame because if they had done Hush better, that would still be a good idea because Thomas Elliot is like the perfect like key for the Riddler to take advantage of to dig into Batman.
yeah. So comic Hush is probably better than movie Hush, but
Yeah, I don't think the Riddler was even involved in the comic.
well, no, yeah, no, he was. I just checked the Wikipedia article.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah,
That's weird.
Hush
How
teams
come I
up with the
never?
Riddler, and is
It seems like every time
yeah,
people talk about Hush, they almost don't even talk about the Riddler.
because no one ever talks about the fucking Riddler.
No one ever wants to talk about the Riddler. He
No one
talks
takes him
enough about
seriously
himself.
in the fandom even.
He talks about himself enough. Nobody else wants to do it. But
But yeah, did you want to take a couple minutes to dip into discussing Amanda Waller?
yeah, I gotta be quick because I'm supposed to leave the house in 10 minutes. But um, Amanda Waller is another great example of like the same question, and I think that's a big part of why, even though she is not a Batman character, she shows up in Batman stuff and crosses over with Batman a lot. Because turns out one of the greatest enemies that Batman could ever face is the American government, amongst other things. But Amanda Waller is 100%. She does have some morals, and she is technically, at least trying to be, on the side of good. But she is 100% pure practicality. Once she decides what she wants to do and what everybody should be doing, she will do literally anything to make it happen without even an ounce of shame or regret or scruples. She's one of the only people who does that kind of shit so consistently and has taken things so far that in one of the stories, we get Batman like being about he's not going to kill her, but he's very heavily considering it not stopping someone else from killing her. He wants to let her die because he's like, think I don't think I can save you. You're not insane. You're just wrong.
Yeah, the problem with you isn't that you're insane. The problem with you is that you are completely sane and you're still this morally
You're as sane as
murky.
anybody could be. You're intelligent, you're mentally stable, you have all the resources and information at your disposal, and you still do these horrible things. I can't help you.
Yeah, the reason Waller is so good next to Batman and why they, even though they aren't technically, like, I mean, she's sort of a Batman character because she's sort of nebulously a DC character.
Yeah, she
She's pops
probably
up
rubs up
everywhere.
against him more than others, but
The reason she works so well as a foil to him is because she is what he would be if he crossed his line.
she might as well be the Batman who kills people.
She's not a fighter. She has other people for that with bombs in their heads. She's more of a puppet master, chess master type. But ultimately, she is I will keep the populace safe and make the world better. But I will do anything I have to do, regardless how morally bankrupt or ruthless it is, to make that happen. She is she is the person when Bruce Wayne looks in the mirror, he sees her staring back at him and is like, if I cross my line, that's who I become, and that cannot happen.
Yeah, maybe that's like one of the few good things she does is that she's one of the things helping keep Batman straight because he has a perfect example of where he could go right
Yeah.
there in front of him. And like, I mean, there are so many things I could say about Waller. She's involved in a lot of stuff. If you know anything about the Suicide Squad, you know she did all
She's
that and
DC's Nick Fury, but more fucked up.
And she was such a shithead to the Suicide Squad that these ex-villains, half of whom at least are still planning on and trying to be villains when they end up in the Suicide Squad, do what they can to ditch her and leave, and some of them give up on being villains after that, only partially because they've been redeemed and turn around, and the other part because they want nothing to do with any of that shit anymore ever again or her.
Yeah.
Like, she's that bad. She's so bad. She's the only person who could ever push things and push Batman so far that, like, one of my favorite scenes I see sometimes from one of the DC animated specials is like Batman in her office and talking to her and confronting her about some of the stuff she's done. She's like, yeah, and what are you gonna do about it? And he's like, I'm not gonna do anything at all. And he steps back while a laser goes through the window
But also,
onto her
Deadshot is
head.
on that roof over there, and I'm not
And
necessarily going to stop him.
yeah, no, literally, like, I'm not going to do anything. As in, I'm not going to save you. Like,
He pulls the like Batman Begins. I'm not going to kill you, but that doesn't mean I have to save you.
yeah. And, unlike where it's partially for laughs in Batman Begins, this is such an example of she's probably the only person in the world he would ever do this with. Because there is nothing he can do to help her or make her better, and she doesn't have any shield or excuse of insanity or anything. She's just bad.
But I mean, she's not. Yeah, bad is specifically the word as well. Not
That's
evil,
why I say bad,
bad.
not
Yeah.
evil.
But yeah, I think we are pushing it for time. Unfortunately, I mean, we knew it would be. There's so many interesting villains in Batman's
So many
canon,
we still haven't even gotten to.
but time is the biggest villain of them all, and it it's coming for all of us. So we'll have to leave that one there. If you
Yeah, no
guys
Lazarus pits for us.
if you guys have enjoyed this episode, have been listening to it on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcast, Podbean, any of that. You can also find these episodes on my website, radfordwrites.com, where I also routinely post stories and poetry and blogs and articles and all that sort of thing. You can also buy my books there or read my serialized story about the different people going through the end of the world epilogue there. And you can, of course, find me collaborating plenty with John on various other things as well. John, you can find streaming as Sephir, Sephear, on YouTube and Twitch, and you will, of course, see plenty more of them in all of those collaborations we tend to do with each other. For now, though, don't put on a bat suit and go and beat the shit out of people. It's actually very illegal.
But keep doing your best because you can always be better.
Goodbye.